Hey everyone, welcome to another practitioner video in the data-driven engagement track at Signals 2020. In today's video or session, we're going to be talking about getting more data-driven without more data. So hopefully you've been to any of our presentations that were around how we can help you acquire new data and permission-based data in really creative and interactive ways. But in this session, we're going to make the focus a little bit less about data and accessing the data that you already have, and make it a little bit more about leveraging the Cheetah toolset and how the toolset can really elevate the data that you already have, right? So in this presentation, we're going to take for granted that you have all of the data that you need to run a successful marketing program. But really the goal of this presentation today is really twofold. So one, for existing Cheetah Messaging clients, I want you guys to walk away with understanding new tools or new features within Cheetah Messaging that exist today that maybe you didn't realize you had access to, or maybe you didn't know how to use, or maybe you didn't have any idea how to use it in terms of strategy, right? So that's the goal today. And then another goal of today as well is to introduce you guys to the EDP, or the Engagement Data Platform, and some of the benefits that come with that in terms of talking to this topic, right? So machine learning goes hand in hand with this topic, right? How do we get more data driven without more data? A lot of times that's with ML, and it's with smart ML running on our Cheetah platforms and allowing you guys to apply it to your programs. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and dive into the presentation. So just a quick introduction. My name is Jordan Leo. I'm a principal solutions consultant at Cheetah Digital. I've been here for about 4 years. My main focus is really just working with existing and new business clients to really understand what they're trying to do and make sure our solution aligns with what they're trying to do. And also hopefully bring some strategic ideas to the table in terms of how our products and our solutions can help them. I will be joined a little bit later by my colleague, Skylar. He's on the product management team. He specializes in machine learning. So he's your guy whenever you want to talk about machine learning, and he will likely do a brief introduction of himself a little bit later when I hand it off to him. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and dive into the agenda. So a couple things on the agenda today. I will not be in slides the whole time, or really at all after this slide. I am going to really dive right into the demo. So the first part of the demo is going to be talking about Cheetah Messaging and how you can start to leverage features within that UI to really, again, elevate your data strategies. And then I'll hand it over to Sky, who's going to start talking about machine learning in the Engagement Data Platform and how you can apply that to your programs. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. So this is Cheetah Messaging. For you guys on the phone who are listening and have access to Cheetah Messaging, you know and love this platform, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I just am going to dive right into the topic. So first and foremost, filters. So again, if you're a Cheetah Messaging client, hopefully you know what filters are. But if not, this is really the place where you start to understand and make accessible all of the data that you have in the platform. So on the right-hand side, any data that we're ingesting becomes available for you guys to pull in and create audiences with, and different criteria, different logic. What's a bit underutilized and what I'm going to focus on a little bit more today is this section called activities and items. So this is where you can start to understand engagement and response activity that's happening with your subscribers. So it goes way beyond just, did somebody open or click an email in the last 30 days? Or did somebody open or click an email at least 4 times in the last 30 days. Those things are great, and we can certainly do that, but I want to show you a little bit more of the granular capabilities that the toolset has. So I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. So activities and items. So a few cool things that you can start to think about, and I'll go over today. Things like pulling in something like received content, or link clicks, or read a campaign, right? I don't know if you guys know that these things exist. Maybe you do and just have never used them. But regardless, I'm hoping to show you some strategic ideas to get more data driven with how you're handling and targeting your audiences. So let's start with received content. if I pull that in, really what that's meaning is it's saying I want to target people who received a certain piece of content. And as you can see, it gets really granular. You can choose any content that's stored in a specific folder. Date-based calculations, again, those are the ones that I think are more commonly used. But what I want to start introducing you guys to is this concept of tagging, right? Any asset within the platform is something that can be tagged. And it's not just the email channel, it's across all channels. And that becomes really powerful, right? So for example, if I click into, I want to target anybody who received specific content with a specific tag, and I say women's, for example, now all of a sudden I'm going to look at anybody who received content that was tagged as women's. So this becomes really helpful if you're leveraging dynamic content within the platform. So maybe your entire universe is getting a single email, but if you're really strategic about using dynamic content, everybody's email should be entirely different, right? So using tags will allow you to get granular and make sure you're understanding through and through with every touch point if you're targeting the right people based on the data that you have available to you, right? So let's dive into a content block and see how that comes to life, right? So this is a content block. This is where you can start to build out just snippets of HTML or snippet of code that allows you to really drag and drop into an email campaign or an SMS campaign, again, thinking cross-channel, and also to tag it, right? So if I go to actions, I can click on set tags, and this is where I can apply any tag under the sun to start really organizing my assets into different categories. Now, again, it's important to start thinking about the fact that you might want to be organized here, right? So I would encourage you guys to think about what makes sense, right? What tags do you want to use as an organization that will help you get more targeted and data-driven when you're building out audiences at the campaign level or when you're building out dynamic content. It's also worth noting too, I'm showing you this on a content block, but you can tag emails, you can tag links. And another thing, if you notice here, if I close out of this, you can go into link clicks, for example, and if you're tagging link clicks, you can also look at links that are tagged with specific criteria as well. So once you start incorporating tagging into your tool set, again, it becomes very powerful in terms of creating criteria and logic for who you're targeting, why, and how. So another thing worth showing you guys too within the filter tool is if I pull in something like campaign reads. So we talked a lot about tagging. Another powerful tool set is to start using this capability called folders, right? So within Cheetah Messaging, you have the ability to set up custom foldering systems or organizational systems within the tool. So imagine you start to organize your campaigns or your content within folders. And you can start saying, you know what, I want to target anybody who read a campaign that I categorized into a certain folder. So if I click on in a folder, it starts to open up my organizational system. If I go in here, click here, you can see that I have a number of folders set up that I can start using to, again, be more data-driven with this audience that I'm building out. So a number of ways you can think about this. You can create folders that have categories such as just, again, different products or categories that you're selling on your site. So with our brand Infini, which is just a fake brand that Cheetah created for demos, classes is something, or workout classes is something that campaigns or emails are often promoting, right? So you could save all of your campaigns that have anything to do with that into the classes folder. Anything that has to do with men's or women's, you can classify it there. Another way you can start thinking about this is just campaign type, whether it's promotional or transactional, or if it's a re-engagement campaign. So just, again, just like tags, it would be really interesting for you guys, now that you know this capability exists, to start thinking about how you might want to organize your campaigns for the purposes of tagging, or maybe even reporting as well. Go ahead and cancel that. So switching gears a little bit, I also want to start talking about this concept of what we call calculated fields. So we talked again a whole lot about tagging and foldering and how you can get more granular with targeting based on engagement criteria. But what about this concept of using something called calculated fields? So if I go into this section here, which I introduced earlier, and I pull in this channel engagement field. Something that's really interesting about this is a marketer-defined field. So this actually isn't something that I'm being sent over or Cheetah is getting sent over from the client. This is actually something that the marketer is defining. Now, what does that mean? Let's bring that to life a little bit. So if I jump over here, this is where you start to configure what we call a calculated field. So in this screen, you can start to see what channel engagement means and what fields are available to define channel engagement within this screen. So essentially we're saying, if somebody falls into this filter, then append to their profile that their channel engagement preference is email. So you guys were just introduced to the filter tool. This logic can be as simple as, is opted into the email channel, or as complex as, is opted in and has engaged recently and has engaged with certain content if you want to throw that in there. The sky's really the limit in terms of the data that you can use to build out the logic to say, this person prefers email as a channel. If somebody doesn't fall into this logic, they'll be evaluated for whether or not they'll fall into this filter. Again, this filter can have any logic to define whether or not somebody's engaged with SMS. If they fall into this filter, they'll be appended SMS to their profile. So when I drag in channel engagement to my filter and pull in SMS, it will pull in all the folks who fell into this logic or this filter, and so on and so forth. What's interesting about a calculated field too is it's a priority stack. So as the marketer, you're defining which channels are most important to you, or in some cases, least expensive to you, right? So if I fall into email and Facebook engaged, because I put email at the top of my list or top of my priority stack, I'll only get that email preference appended to my profile. Another important thing to note on the screen as well is this is automated. So on a regular cadence and a schedule that you define, this is going to rerun and repopulate so that every time you go to pull in this criteria into a filter or an audience, it will be the most up to date according to your schedule. So again, this is another way to get more data driven without needing more data. It's really just building upon the data that you already have and learning from it and creating this new field that's automated and refreshed on a consistent basis. And last but not least, this is going to open the floor to Skylar. I'm going to talk a little bit about machine learning. So if you're a messaging client and you're an EDP client, you start to take advantage of machine learning capabilities, and the platforms are connected in a really smart way, right? So I'm just within messaging, I'm within a campaign, I'm setting the time and the schedule for when I want to hit send. I used all the strategies I just showed you guys to create a really smart audience with really smart content. And now I'm going to layer on machine learning recommended send time to make sure that all of those customers and subscribers are getting the email at the right time. So you can optimize send time based on open or clicks. And this is all because we have these machine learning models running consistently within the engagement data platform. I'm not going to steal Skylar's thunder. I'm going to hand it off to him because he's going to show you a little bit in terms of what goes on behind the scenes to create these sophisticated and complex models that you guys can start to leverage within your messaging programs. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Skylar. He's going to go over machine learning and also wrap this video. Thank you guys so much. It was great to speak to you, and please reach out if you have any questions. Skylar, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Jordan. Great content as always. Hello, everyone. Again, I'm Skylar. I lead product for machine learning and analytics. And I'm just going to scratch a little bit beneath the surface of our machine learning offerings in the EDP. So just as a reminder here, kind of second portion of the session is how you can up-level to machine learning from our core messaging features using some of our EDP or engagement data platform features. So let's dive quickly into a demo account. Here I am in my machine learning home tab, the home for machine learning in the EDP application of the CES, the Customer Engagement Suite. So Jordan has introduced you to send time optimization, and worth noting that these distinct applications within the CES are not all independent of each other entirely. We, as you've seen, have manifestations of EDP features in messaging. So we build this machine learning model. Here, we operationalize it in the EDP. Here is where you can view insights of that model. It's not just a bunch of black magic. You can see the distribution of observed engagement times historically, when your customers open and click your messages, what sort of effect the time of day typically has on engagement. And then you can also look at the machine learning optimized time. So this is essentially the quote score or the prediction that the machine learning model produces and writes or appends as a new member attribute in your member table in the EDP. And so when, as Jordan showed, you are in step in your campaign workflow and messaging, you don't have to go over to EDP or create some new segment or import any data into messaging to leverage machine learning, specifically STO in this case. You simply indicate that you'd like to leverage machine learning STO predictions, and then identify whether you'd like to optimize for open activity or for click activity. Another set of models I'd like to mention, which Jordan did not introduce, are propensity models. So we have actually 4 here by default: propensity to open, propensity to click, propensity to unsubscribe, and propensity to unengage. Sometimes I call this emotionally unsubscribing. And here, the insights, I think, are a little more compelling. So the first thing we'll see is a distribution across the propensity spectrum. So if I hover over a bar here, I can see that of the, I think, roughly 3 million members scored in this analysis, about 130,000 have a 70 to 75% likelihood to unengage. Additionally, we can derive some more insights from these models. So it's not just a matter of knowing which people have a certain score, are they high, medium, or low risk, but also the influencers that contribute to their propensities. So it's a little tooltip here, tells you that you're looking here below at the customer attributes driving the predictive behavior, the variables that pop in the model, so to speak. We try to provide some plain English explanations here so that you can interpret and digest what it is you're looking at. We have indicators of importance. So is the relationship between these variables or characteristics positive or negative? And what is the magnitude? Is it 3 dots here, 1 or 2? And then additionally, these are all clickable. So you can click into a specific variable, a specific characteristic, and see, again, with plain English explanation, a little bit more detail. For example, if I hover over this bar, 81% of customers that are in this high propensity group had at least 1 click in the last month, which is 150% above the average. So you can continue to scroll through there and click into your heart's content to really understand what the drivers are of this outcome. This will help you strategize your communication strategy. So if you decide, hey, I really want to target a group of people that are at risk, the next question is, well, what do I say to them? How do I address them differently? Is that with a higher or lower cadence? Is it with a special offer, a particular tone of message, or what have you? And worth mentioning, I think we've had clients with recently great success in terms of increasing monetary spend by taking low propensity to unengage customers and increasing cadence, and conversely, high propensity to unengage customers and decreasing cadence, and we've seen mostly a nominal difference in churn, which is at least not bad, mostly good. But the test segments responded favorably with additional transactional conversions, as well as average order value and overall spend. Okay, and let's round out the ML session by highlighting just one more modeling type. So this here is a clustering model. So most people would be familiar with cluster segmentation. With these, you get a quick snapshot of sort of relative size or proportion of the groups that the machine has identified, along with kind of our fairly typical KPIs, especially related to messaging. Over here, you'll see the names that we've supplied. Now, these are kind of catchy names that we've given it. The machine does not determine that. You can view the profile characteristics. Let me click into one of these groups. You, as the marketer, can assess the KPIs and the defining characteristics, which you'll see down here. So this is the profile makeup of this particular group. You can see Gmail, youngish age band, some engagement activity, and corresponding engagement rates or KPIs that pertain to that group, and then provide a catchy or at least marketer-friendly term accordingly. And then just to kind of wrap up my quick session here, a note on how actionable this is. It's one thing to have these interesting insights from machine learning models, and you show me this distribution and scores, but you might be saying to yourself, all right, Sky, how do I act on this? So I'm going to go over to our audiences and people explorer functionality within the EDP, and I'm just going to type in cluster, and I see here persona cluster name. So these here you see the distribution of in an easy pie chart. It's very fast and performant. That allows me the ability with just a couple of clicks to start building an audience. So if I want to say target this group of users that is dormant but have shown indications of potential, all I do is double click on that segment, and here I can see I have about 545,000 of the 2.9-ish million in my universe. I can layer on additional criteria here if I'd like. We also have other segment builder functionality for more complex conditions. But just to highlight here, it's as easy as a few clicks. Evaluating machine learning insights and those scores and attributes are available to you to create segments that you can target for a variety of marketing campaigns. Okay, so just to close out, let's recap what we covered here. So key takeaways. Jordan showed you a number of great quick wins that you can apply in messaging, the messaging application of the CES today. And then I've highlighted here a couple of different ML models and suggestions for how you might use both those insights and the new member attributes that we provide you. We seed it for you. So this is, get more data driven without more data. Okay, technically it's more data in terms of machine learning attributes, but the ease of use is the real value add. These are things that we provision for you. We can produce these models without requiring that you, the client, supply us with any data of your own. Of course, we're only using your data or data on your campaigns and customers to produce these models, but it is all done on information that we have native access to. So it's system generated data, and we can produce these models with that alone, and give you the ability to elevate your strategies using the EDP. Here are just a couple of takeaways, some links to the Customer Engagement Suite Help Center, and then under that as a sub-bullet, Cheetah Messaging documentation and Cheetah EDP, Engagement Data Platform documentation. That is all I have. Thank you very much for your time. Please reach out to Jordan or myself if you have any questions or input.